Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about a core teaching of the Buddha, the Five Hindrances and the 10 Fetters, and why most people mistakenly understand these teachings and therefore practice in an ineffective way. You've all had the experience of the hindrances and the fetters. You've probably experienced busy mind when you're meditating, or doubt about whether it's having any effect, or perhaps runaway desires. And I've found in my years of teaching that many people misinterpret these teachings from the Buddha. They might hear the word hindrance or fetter and think that they should avoid, overcome, or suppress these hindrances. And this is not the teaching. And in fact, the right approach, which is to allow and investigate them, and I'll say much more about this at the end. When we hear the suttas or sutras, we should reflect on what the hindrances are and then cultivate this curiosity and sense of investigation. In the sutras, the Buddha says that we should reflect on the unattractiveness of sensual desires to overcome desire, or cultivate loving kindness to overcome ill will, or cultivate energy in order to counter what's called sloth and torpor, which is sleepiness, or develop our ability to concentrate in order to overcome restlessness, and to cultivate wisdom to overcome doubt. And we can misinterpret such instructions like this, believing that we should try to resist the hindrances. Before I specifically outline how to relate to the hindrances and the fetters, I want to just briefly outline what they are. Just bear with me here. There's a couple of long lists, and then I'll get into the meat of the talk. The five hindrances are, very briefly, sensual desires, number one, which is a strong attachment and craving for pleasure. The second is ill will. So this is feelings of aversion, anger, resentment. The third is what's translated as sloth and torpor. It's just simply dullness or just drowsiness, lack of energy. The fourth is restlessness and worry. This is kind of this busy mind. There's an agitation, even anxiety. And the fifth is the doubt, which is really an uncertainty, a lack of faith in the teachings. The 10 fetters, on the other hand, the first is self-identity views, belief in a permanent independent self. The second, doubt again, regarding the teachings. The third, which is a new one, is attachment to rites and rituals and practices. This is kind of over-reliance on external rituals for liberation. The fourth, again, is repeat, sensual desire. Fifth is a repeat from the hindrances, ill will. The sixth is a desire for existence in the material world. In other words, attachment to life, to living, and to worldly achievements. And the seventh is an interesting one. It's a desire for existence in non-material realms, so a craving for rebirth or to be born in heaven, for example. The eighth is conceit. So that's taking excessive pride or based on ego pride on achievements, meditation achievements. The seventh, a repeat from the hindrances, is restlessness. And the 10th is ignorance, which is simply often translated as a lack of understanding of the Four Noble Truths and the true nature of reality. When I started my practice, I really practiced trying to overcome these hindrances and fetters. For decades I did this because that's what I was taught. I was trying to get rid of them, had a kind of an aversive relationship with them. It's not until I realized that these hindrances and fetters are simply displays of egoic resistance to seeking truth that are being put up by the mind. And when I saw that, I was able to really take off and advance in my practice. If we're not supposed to resist or suppress the hindrances and fetters, what's the way forward? How do we practice with them? I've found that there's three key attitudes that are necessary in our approach to difficulties or hindrances on the path. The first key attitude is that difficulties are not a problem. They are the path, in fact. So rather than viewing difficulties as obstacles or problems to be avoided or suppressed, we can recognize them as valuable opportunities to practice for growth, for transformation. And by investigating these hindrances and fetters, we can really gain insights into the nature of our own minds and develop wisdom and understanding. So we're embracing the difficulty, and then it becomes an integral part of our path, guiding us forward to deeper understanding. The second attitude is making the difficulty, the hindrance or the fetter, the object of meditation or attention. So when we're faced with one of these difficulties, we can actively engage with them by making them the focus of our meditation. So it's far from pushing them away or overcoming them. We welcome them into our practice. And by directing kind of a curiosity or interest towards them, we gain a clear understanding of their causes and effects, and it really allows us to observe them without judgment or attachment, which leads to a kind of gradual release and to a transformation. And the third attitude is, if we find that they're either overwhelming or very persistent, we can kind of re-engage the observer. Important that some of these difficulties may feel overwhelming, especially overwhelming emotions, or maybe persistent, busy mind. And in such cases, we can re-engage the observer and just simply sit back and observe that this is just what's arising and falling. Another effective way to deal with these overwhelming ones is to get some guidance from an experienced spiritual teacher or mentor that can kind of offer insights and ways of engaging with them. By embodying and practicing these three key insights, we cultivate a profound shift in our relationship with difficulties, fetters, or hindrances. We begin to view them as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. We're actively investigating them with an attitude of openness and curiosity. And through the transformative power of meditation and mindfulness, we develop the capacity to observe and understand them without being overwhelmed. And when they are overwhelming or persistent, we know what to do. We can seek guidance and wisdom from others to help us kind of navigate our way through them. And in this way, we can really integrate the teachings on the hindrances and the fetters into our practice, making them objects of meditation and seeking remedies when it's appropriate. With practice, we come to realize that difficulties are not a problem, not to be feared, but rather embraced as invaluable, really, opportunities for growth and ultimately the realization of our true nature. In the pursuit of enlightenment, an easy and comfortable life does not provide the conditions for realization. It's our suffering that is really the doorway or the gift that brings us, it makes it possible. The 13th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart stated that the simple act of expressing gratitude for everything in our life, just by saying thank you, is sufficient as a prayer. Thank you for the difficulties and the joys. The Buddhist Lojong slogan says, transform adversity into the path of awakening. Kind of conveys the same idea that we're embracing everything and everyone, even those that we find disagreeable. And they're all part of the path. We can take the perspective that there are no mistakes or failures in our practice that indicate, a loss of progress. Such thoughts are just simply thoughts arising from the egoic mind, rather than really reflecting any reality in the present moment. So the invitation here is to really take the attitude that there are no mistakes or failures in your practice that indicate a problem or lack of progress or laziness or whatever. Remember that such thoughts are just arising from the egoic mind, that they don't reflect the reality of what's unfolding. So when we adopt this perspective, every aspect of our lives becomes an opportunity for spiritual growth. Now, I know this may sound kind of scary to say, I got the practice or the invitation is to embrace all the difficult things, the busy mind or the anxiety that might arise. But this is really a key part of the process. By fully engaging with whatever arises, whether it's pleasant or challenging, and approaching it with curiosity and openness really allows us to not only work through the difficulties, work through the difficult emotion or the runaway thoughts, so we can heal and grow psychologically. But more importantly, at least for spiritually, is it's the basis of our transformation, of our seeing the true nature of ourselves and the true nature of reality. So the unresolved issues and unresolved emotions can be healed, right, through this process and integrated into our life. And ultimately, also true nature is seen. We see that these are all unsatisfactory. They're all impermanent, transitory. So the ultimate message is we embrace the totality of our experience, including the positive and negative aspects. And this is part of our journey. We can even cultivate a sense of gratitude. So we engage in all the life's challenges and recognizing that there will be unresolved issues that arise, and we transform the entirety of this into a spiritual practice. Taking this approach, we can really navigate this path of awakening and find profound transformation and liberation. So by making difficulties, hindrances, and fetters the object or focus of our meditation, and cultivating an attitude of curiosity and non-reactivity, we can explore our experiences with greater clarity and compassion. It's kind of just like a mirror reflects whatever is in front of it without being affected by it. We can bring this kind of mirror-like quality of pure awareness to whatever arises in our experience. And this pure awareness simply reflects, right, what is present without getting caught up in it. So it allows us to develop this real kind of non-judgmental and spacious awareness that can hold and illuminate any experience that arises. Neuroscience research supports the effectiveness of this kind of practice, and including labeling and another element of this. So when we consciously label our emotions or thoughts during meditation or our lives, it results in a decrease in activity in the amygdala, which is associated with reactivity, and an increase in activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is associated with more kind of cognitive regulation. So this labeling practice can be applied not only to negative emotions, but also positive emotions, and we can transform and evolve our relationship to that as well. So let's explore how these three attitudes directly relate to the five hindrances. The first hindrance, sensual desire, is likened to a glass of water mixed with dye. The Buddha used this as a metaphor. And this signifies how this hindrance clouds our ability to see truth. So when we encounter strong attachments and cravings for pleasures, such as a pleasurable experience, or it could be a material possession, the practice of embracing becomes essential. Instead of trying to indulge the desire or suppress the desire, we can bring all the desires into awareness and simply observe them with curiosity and non-reactivity. So by understanding the impermanent and unsatisfactory nature of these desires, we can gradually release our attachment to them. The other one, ill will, is compared to boiling water, and this denotes intense agitation and turmoil. So when feelings of aversion, anger, resentment arise, we can welcome them and investigate them as well. Again, practicing non-reactivity and labeling, we can label the emotions. That decreases their hold on us, and we can cultivate more of a compassionate attitude towards them as well. The hindrance of sloth and torpor, which is dullness or drowsiness, the metaphor the Buddha used was stagnant water or a murky pond. And this symbolizes this kind of lack of movement and clarity and energy. Restlessness and worry manifests as a restless, busy mind. We know this as, runaway thoughts. And again, in line with embracing the difficulty, we can welcome these states and investigate their true nature. So we're being curious about the other underlying causes of restlessness and worry, and we can just simply observe without getting caught up in their momentum. We can label them as, busy mind, maybe a story, a boss story, or worry, and seeing them as arising and disidentifying from them. I would like to talk about the 10 fetters in relation to what the Buddha detailed as the 4 stages to enlightenment. In his early teachings, he detailed kind of these 4 stages. First one being stream entry, second, once returner, the third is a non-returner, and the fourth, of course, is the arahant. And as within each stage, we transcend some of the fetters. So I'm going to outline all that in a moment, but it's interesting to note, and this is really interesting, that the view of a separate self, or the self-view as it's called, is transcended in the first stage, whereas restlessness and busy mind are only transcended when we're fully enlightened. So this can be kind of encouraging if you're finding yourself, having busy mind and restless mind when you're meditating. This will stay with us until full enlightenment. So it's some people think that I start this practice, I should be able to quiet the mind by now. You're going to transcend self-view much before you get this kind of into the state of where the mind actually becomes quite still and quite quiet. So the 4 stages of enlightenment and the corresponding transcending of the fetters kind of go as follows. The first is stream entry, sotapanna, and this is the initial stage of enlightenment. At this stage, practitioners gain an experiential understanding of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness. And they develop an unshakable confidence in the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, or spiritual community. They have a first glimpse of freedom, or nirvana. The stream enterer has broken the first 3 fetters: self-view, attachment to rites and rituals, and doubt. Someone who breaks the first 3 fetters and becomes a stream enterer, their future enlightenment is assured. In other words, when you transcend these first 3 fetters, it's a key point. It's you're never going to give up. In other words, you've transcended these fetters, and your enlightenment is assured. You're kind of in the stream and being carried by the current to enlightenment, regardless of what the ego might chime in with or what kind of resistance the ego might put up. The once returner, or Sakadagami, those that reach this stage have weakened the fetters of sexual desire and ill will. They've kind of reduced their attachment to sensual pleasures and aversion. So the once returner is characterized by a diminished identification with the body, and a real deepening insight into the nature of reality. The non-returner, or anagami, has completely transcended the fetters of sensual desire and ill will. So there's no longer an experience of craving and aversion that binds ordinary people. Non-returners have also weakened the fetter of restlessness and worry. So it's not gone, but it's weakened. The fourth and final stage is the arahant, the fully enlightened one. And you're fully liberated at this point. The arahant has completely transcended all 10 fetters that binds human beings to the cycle of samsara. They've eliminated completely sensual desire, ill will, restlessness, sloth and torpor, doubt, desire for existence and form, and the desire for formless existence, conceit, and ignorance. So the full ultimate truth has been attained, and ultimate freedom from suffering has been attained. So that's kind of how you move through the transcending or abandonment of the 10 fetters as you move through the stages of enlightenment. And this can be very useful to know, because people think that, I shouldn't have this difficulty or this problem in my practice, but they not only do they gradually weaken as you move through the stages of the practice, but some will be completely transcended before others. And restless mind is the last one to go. So this can be very encouraging for people, as I said, who experience busy mind in their practice. And it also illustrates how transcending the self view, or seeing the truth of not self, is a very early practice. And so working with the 5 aggregates is a very useful early practice to engage in. Seeing not self is not out there as the most advanced practice, as some may think. So I hope that also helps give some more depth and a better view of the 10 fetters. I can't emphasize enough that allowing and investigating these challenges and viewing them as valuable opportunities for spiritual growth is so key, leading to profound insights and ultimately enlightenment or liberation. I hope you found this talk helpful, and thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope to see you soon. Be well.